Welcome to PowerShell Wednesday, everybody. It's a new year, 2026. Same old PowerShell Wednesday, only getting better over time. Love questions in the chat. Today, we have newly minted Microsoft MVP, clappa in the chatta for our friend David Sass. Welcome to PowerShell Wednesday. Woo!
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk about some fun stuff today that before this started, I was having a hard time not talking about because it's just hard to not want to go for those easy wins when you see them out there. And no matter where you are in your knowledge of code, you could be very beginner running like single commands. You can get a lot of value out of what we're going to be showing today. But David, before we get into all the fun stuff, Jupyter Notebooks, PowerShell, security, all this great stuff, can you introduce yourself just a little bit for those who haven't gotten a chance to meet you yet?
Of course. I am one of those Hungarian guy who left the country. Right now, I'm living in Switzerland. Technology-wise, I am a recovering SharePoint architect who left all the standard .NET framework-based PowerShell behind and switched over to security and macOS. I usually don't do cool stuff with technology, but I think I solve real problems and usually talk about that.
Awesome. Yeah, so security and Mac OS, that is a fun space. I've been to a couple of Mac conferences and gone to their security talks, so fun stuff there. Oh, Justin Grody. Oh yeah, no, I mentioned he's a newly minted. So yes, I said clappa in the chat for him. He is newly minted. Congratulations, well deserved. We got to meet. I mean, I've seen you online for a very long time, but I think we got to meet in person at PowerShell Conference Europe earlier this year, and glad to finally get you here. I'm going to share your screen real quick so we can show sort of what we're talking about. And from what I'm seeing in the chat right now, we have a lot of people who have very likely used Jupyter Notebooks or PowerShell Notebooks in the past. So please, as we go through, or even right now, type a couple of one-liners that you're rolling in here that kind of sound relevant to you and other people might benefit from. But yeah, David, what are we even looking at right here? What is this?
So I do write lots of one-liners, but they, as I type them, I've already forgot them, and they don't work on others' machines. So I stumbled into Jupyter Notebooks with Python back in the day when I was still looking at Python. And I learned that I can do PowerShell in Jupyter Notebooks. And I switched to that because if this would be working, when I can write in Jupyter Markdown as documentation, and I can write code in different languages. And whenever I do that, the results are going to be kept for me on the screen. And if I save this file and close it and open it again, if I find it, all what was run previously is there. And because my memory is very short, I really like when I come back to something 5 minutes later or 2 weeks later, and I see what the last output was, and I can pick up from there. If that makes sense.
That makes absolute sense. My brain's already kind of going into different places where I have documentation in my personal life, where there's like a little bit of code here or there to like whatever problem I'm solving in my personal life with whatever scripts, and just being able to run them from here ad hoc, like the way I go about downloading videos from YouTube, for example, like having that documented and how I get it in the different formats and the FFmpeg, if anybody's ever dabbled. Like, I know you mentioned Python and PowerShell, but this is the type of thing, like we're going to talk about it in kind of a PowerShell context, but it scales with you with whatever you're sort of doing. It's very well supported and it reaches out far beyond PowerShell. It's just one of the providers or, yeah, I think that I can't remember the name for it, but providers basically.
Yes. I wouldn't say at this state, as of today, that it is well supported. There are some bugs here and there. Certain changes to the VS Code extension has broken stuff significantly. So I am at the moment version pinning to a previous version of the extension to make it work, and waiting for some fixes from Microsoft, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yes, and because my memory is short and I like this, and I have lots of colleagues who do not write scripts at all, it is very helpful for them that when I give them a notebook, they can click this beautiful run all button, and they actually don't need to type anything ever. Just click that button. If something goes wrong, they click restart and basically do these two buttons, or sometimes execute cells ad hoc as they feel like it. And that's the user experience. No actual console is opened and nothing is there to scare them.
And it's like the type of file you can check into source control, for example, right? It's just a text file. Yes. Ultimately.
It is.
Sweet. Okay, so what are we looking at here? You got some get when event log. So why would you want to be querying the event log?
So in the past, when I was working in an on-prem first environment with Active Directory and servers and such, I had a file with hundreds of lines with some regions in them. And I kept every tools there like it was my toolbox. I had at the top of the file one thing which doesn't going to work here, not much, because do not run this. And that was, of course, in PowerShell 5 with PowerShell ISC as my editor. And I have had this in the top of the file. So if by a mistake I clicked F5 to run the file, nothing happened because the exception threw it off. And when I was working on something, I did the usual. You must have seen this on conferences, or you have done this when you have a normal PowerShell file. Just to demonstrate it better. And you have some code. And I cannot type because you are watching. You usually select something and you click run selection by hitting F8. And you do that and you scroll down and look at it in the terminal. And I had a bunch of lines and I was selecting a line, hitting F8, and that's how I did it. And recently, and this is on work machine, of course, I cannot show it, I split it up into actual code blocks in a Jupyter Notebook. And instead of doing select and F8 to run the selection, I'm clicking the execute cell button and getting the same results, except I don't have a scrolling terminal to look at, but everything is kept together and saved into a file.
Okay, so just a couple things if I could just go. Okay, so basically we have a text-based file, and a lot of us, and I've done this too when you're super early on, maybe you'll use your profile for something like this. You have like all the code that you use regularly, you save it in a function, you throw it kind of somewhere, not great documentation, it ends up being a super bloated file. You know, it doesn't have a cohesive purpose even, you get regions, you get all this stuff. And I think that's what you're saying you were before. And now through this, you can kind of have a similar thing, but it's way easier for others to consume. Like, yeah, you can read through your profile and figure out what it all does, but that takes a lot of time compared to something like this, which is made for this type of consumption.
Yes. And one benefit is of this format is that this is a header 2 in Markdown. This is header 1. I can collapse them as I wish. And I can start another. And if I don't need to see whatever is on the top, come on, I collapse that part. Of course, I need to be on render mode, not on code mode. And I can keep stuff hidden away, so it's neatly organized. It doesn't take up too much time. I don't need to scroll. I can have all the colors because I can do some HTML formatting. I can even do pictures. I just don't have a picture right now. And yeah, everything looks nice and tidy. It just, I always need to change the language to PowerShell as the side effect of using an old version pinned extension.
I kind of think people could use this for like presentations too. You know, it's kind of nice.
Yes.
I've seen people use. I've used regions before. We just kind of expand close the regions as you go, but this is way nicer to look at.
And when you finish your presentation, even on a conference, you save it. You check that it is into source control because you do that. And whoever is looking at later, they will see what you ran and what the results were. And I have been trying to convert all the speakers at PowerShell Conference Europe. It is a slow process. But here and there, I have seen them switching and using notebooks for the presentations.
Yeah, because I think it's like if you present it that way, you don't really need to know the PowerShell to run things and follow along. I mean, it helps to read it, and you also don't really need to know about Jupyter Notebooks as long as you have it set up and can open it. You know, you don't need to know how to
Right.
author them or all the details if you're just consuming it, and you get a nice kind of easy way to run things and get the context and all that. So, yeah, kind of seems like it's hard to argue with that, wanting that from a conference, right? That's just the easiest way. Instead of copying
Yes.
or typing some code that you see on the screen, just press a button.
Yes. You cannot make mistakes either. I mean, you can click somewhere else, but there is nothing to select or select incorrectly and run and realize the mistake and run it again and scroll. And because there is no terminal in the screen, it is looking much better because you have more real estate. At least that's how I try to argue for this.
Smart. All right. So we're kind of looking at a couple use cases here. You're getting the local group members.
Mhm.
Do you want to share some of the use cases that you found for notebooks?
It's basically everything. There is no limitation. Well, let me take that back. If you are developing terminal user interface applications, they won't work here. Let me start a new section. And I am doing these headers just so I can later share it. Because if I do a get host, not get read host. Yes, just a read host to get something. And of course, it pops up in the top of the screen. But otherwise, it works the same way. And this works. It can even ask you maybe credentials. course, right now, I am zoomed in very much. And I
Yeah,
am
it
on
looks normal to us,
full
but you have a huge screen,
Yes,
right?
yes. So, but I was trying to click and VS Code didn't register that I'm clicking. So something doesn't work with this zoom level for me right now. But if I do get credential, it does ask for a user first. And then it will ask for a password. And of course, I'm just typing something, so it won't work at all, but it does work and I can get credentials typed in and it's secure. Nothing was the
Whoa.
secret part was protected properly.
That is so wild. My head's kind of like, whoa. Um, that's incredibly valuable. We always talk about like ways to deliver tools easily and this and that. And this has so much stuff built in. Gosh, like putting GUIs on top of things, like there's so many use cases for this.
And it does work with cloud as well, so you can use. I need to take a step back. You can use Microsoft Graph if you want. You can use the PowerShell Graph SDK, no problem. But there is a challenge here. And the challenge being that the profile is different. It's a .NET Interactive profile. I really need to disable Copilot. It doesn't have all the properties you usually get on a normal PowerShell. So if you have your own profile with stuff in it, it is missing. If you have modules installed, I'm not sure that it knows where to look for the modules. That would be.
Yeah, I can see
PS
there'd be
module
some squishy
pass.
bits around like interacting with the session and making things persist and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it does know the modules. It's just I do not use these folders because, at least at work, for certain things, I need certain versions. And because the notebooks don't rely on normal profiles, but their own, I have a different approach that every project contains the required modules in itself. And I'm very quickly going to pull in or open another version where I need to zoom in a lot. I think this is the size. It just doesn't want to stay on this screen. So I'm just developing. We have a project at work where we use PowerShell notebooks for Defender XDR. And it's open source. It's on GitHub. I will drop the link later. We have all the required modules in the folder. But as you see them grayed out, they are not under source control. So everyone needs to maintain their own versions. They need to update their own because we really don't want to put this into source control and be responsible for keeping it updated and checking in and pulling. And we do ship a profile file with this project. Yes. And this profile file is digitally signed and everything. It has all the required gotchas we need for this project to work. And we have an environment configurator notebook, which basically does the installation of the modules into the folder. And maybe I will take it one step smaller. It does drop the profile we ship into the profile folder of the user, because the profile file is very limited. It just tells the notebooks that there are modules in the modules subfolder. Let me scroll up. So we do a when you open PowerShell and when you open a notebook, it does know where the notebook is, but it doesn't know much about it. And to tell PowerShell that, hey, we have modules in a subfolder, we need to modify the PS module pass to point it to this folder. And because all the colleagues can clone this folder anywhere on their computer, we cannot really hard code a folder pass where the modules will be. So there is some dynamic lookup here to figure out where we are, and because notebooks can live in any subfolders, we need to locate the project root. For that, we use the find gitignore. And when we have the gitignore location, we can calculate the module pass and nicely add it to the PS module pass environment variable. And because this is a profile and we use it as such, when a user opens a notebook, and let me clear all outputs, and they run it, all of this, well, you don't see any verbose messages here, right? There is a splitting of the PS module pass, getting the first result. That would be this line. Sorry, this line. But all the verbose messages, those are coming from the profile, which we dropped. So what we do, and I know this is getting confusing. It took me a while to figure this out. Every time you open a notebook and the notebook is started, or when you run the first code block, it will load the profile and calculate the module pass, expand the module pass, and make sure that all the modules stored in the module folder are usable.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is just to recap a little bit, because we're in the situation now where you have adopted this well, your org is kind of like bought in, and you've decided, hey, how do we actually practically ship this? Well, we have to ship our dependencies with it. And part of that is like, we need this custom profile. And whenever you run a command, a new PowerShell session is created. And anytime a PowerShell session is created, whatever profile runs. So that profile you put will run and bootstrap it so that your examples that might, like you're talking about Microsoft Graph, like that requires authentication, all this other stuff. So you can do that, but you just have to bootstrap it. And maybe not everybody's going to use it for this exact same purpose, but the same idea applies where if you have weird things going on or things you need to customize for your environment, you do that with that interactive profile.
Yes. So this is the making it clean and lean. We actually don't need to do that. We can just do, let me take this code. So on the top of the file, let's remove this example. If I just put this there, I can just do this, I believe. That but in this case, every notebook has to contain it. Basically, because there is no real profile, you either ship all your prerequisites on the top of the file and you always run it, or you do some magic like we did. Well, do some complicated heavy lifting with custom profiles, which you can actually get from our GitHub repo with all the signatures. It will work, so no issues. So we had these two options: ship everything, like it's in it's a container basically. Like it, the joke or phrase that it works on my machine is not going to be an issue anymore, because if you put all the prerequisites in the top of the notebook and you ship the whole notebook, it's there. And if you put Justin's module fast commands here with defining what modules you need, and every time it checks if it's there, and if not, it downloads it very fast, then you basically solve the issue that it's self-contained, or if it needs something, it will get it for itself, and then you can ship it. But I didn't want to bother with all of this. I wanted to make it as simple for my end users. So I moved this into a profile and made sure that there is a setup notebook, and all the other notebooks are dedicated just for the work itself. Nothing ugly, or not ugly, nothing unrelated to the actual work is distracting to them.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. So this right here would just be kind of the cheaper way of going about it. Maybe it works for a lot of people, but that's going to have to be at the top of your script. Jake Hildreth asks, are you able to mark code blocks so they run every time you open up the notebook, or does everyone have to manually run it? I'm going to guess for security reasons they have to manually run it, but
Yes.
yeah.
That is, even when I have the profile, nothing is ever actually executed until a code block is executed.
Yeah, you have to press
Probably
play.
it's for some security reasons decided by the Jupyter inventors. I don't know, decade ago. I actually never looked up when it was invented.
I want to mention one thing you said earlier for those who maybe missed it, which was a pretty great tip, which was put a throw at the top of this to prevent accidental execution, right? You were talking about putting a throw at the top line. I thought that that was
Yes.
pretty clever.
I don't think that it works. No, it definitely doesn't work here. But right now I need to restart it. It died on me. Okay. There was a stop button, but they didn't stop. Just, I'm going to run this. Okay, no issues. So I said put a throw here. Okay, this works. I'm going to clear all outputs. Okay. And I need to close the file. This is probably, I don't have this at work, so probably it's something on my machine. And now I click run all. You see the yellow part from the profile, and there is also already the input question from read host, and then the user stuff. So now, throw here is not going to throw off the whole notebook. So this sadly doesn't work.
Well, I thought it would run it if you pressed, I guess F5 or no? Because I thought that was the example you used. So apologies if I misunderstood that.
Oh, no. F5 is in ISC, PowerShell ISC, the old integrated scripting environment
Got you. Yeah.
on which you
F5
still
behaves
use
differently here.
if you are on probably customer systems, on servers, and you don't have PowerShell 7, you only have Windows PowerShell, and you cannot use VS Code. You can only use ISC because that's part of the OS, and no one uninstalled it yet. In that case, the throw does work, so that will save you. Or if you have a file, and in that file,
Yeah, I'm
and you
wondering.
accidentally select all, and you would try to run that, it will not run the get host part. Yes. So
Another little tip.
yeah. And because this is my first time using this technology setup, where is the chat?
It's in the comments on the right to the very top. And that's right, everybody. Ask your questions. David is looking now. Yeah, you see it should expand. I wasn't calling you sus, by the way, but Edge kicked at me out for a second there.
But okay, that makes things clearer to me.
Yeah, you're not speaking to a void anymore. Okay, so Defender XDR, and you said you're doing, it's kind of a work thing. People have adopted it. You know, you figured out sort of the way that works for you. And I don't think you're the only person probably in the whole world who's using Jupyter and deploying it this way, or are you feeling like you're kind of a unicorn out there?
I am aware of people who are using it for training.
Yep.
As I believe Jupyter was created for data science first, that people could put their data processing queries and data in a file. You could run, see the results, you could save it, and you could share it with other researchers. And they can run it and they can compare. And it was a very nice user experience. You see the data, you run it, it works, and you can check and run again and compare. I have not met anyone who is using it as a production user interface like we do. Usually, and I have got the questions, why is not just a script to run? Well, because scripts, they do work, but when they throw an error, it gets scary and you need to type something. And I really wanted to take away the typing need from my colleagues. Because convincing people to learn PowerShell, you must know that it is not the easiest thing to do.
Nope.
But I would like to meet people who are using it for work as well. Like for production executions like we do, but never happened before.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that as well. I was thinking, you know, as you were doing that, like if some kind of PowerShell project that does some kind of thing had a getting started IPYNB, just to walk you through commands, maybe walk you through authenticating the first time and showing you how to query things or common workflows that people probably downloaded the module for, like just making it a little bit better. I know that Jeff Hicks has added a command to his modules that will kind of give you tutorials sometimes or show you around, but I could see that being pretty helpful for people who are savvy with Git.
Yeah, I had an idea and I started doing it by hand, that I wanted to turn all the PowerShell Hub documentation into notebooks. Because if you look at the PowerShell Hub, it does going to contain examples, right? And wouldn't it be better if you look at the documentation and you can click the button and run it and modify if you want and run it again as a form of learning it. I converted a couple of pages by hand, and then I realized, oh, this is not the most pleasant full experience. I need to learn how to generate notebooks with code and put it on a side because something else came up. And that was like 6 years ago, and I never went back. But I have some stuff still in GitHub.
Okay. Can we get a little creative here? Oh, there's one question from Morton, our good friend Morton. Question: can you set a default code for the blocks so you don't have to select it each time?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Me neither. I was thinking you might. I did not quite get it. I think that no matter what, if selecting it refers to something, you're going to have to click the run code button if you're going to want to run things. And if you're
So
asking for input, it's going to ask you for input.
let me switch back to this example we have at work. And again, this is not what we use for work. This is the open source version, which I'm using at home to provide my own security, because why not? So when I collapse these things, you can see that it says there are 5 hidden cells. Those are the code block cells, not the text cells. And when I click this, it's going to run all of them which are under that header. And because we do security operations, what usually we would see from my workflow, personal workflow, I initialize and log in once to a customer system. And because that login lasts for a day, in the middle of the day, I'm just clicking the other 2 boxes to do incident enrichment and process incidents.
Okay, cool. So Morton missed it, but the reason that each time as you're authoring these notebooks, you're having to select the language is because you're using an older version that doesn't
Yes.
have that yet.
So I am, where is it? Version pinned to v1.0.5. That requires the .NET 8 SDK. The latest version 1.06 requires .NET 9, which has a display bug. And they are working on releasing an update which fixes the display bug, but that will require .NET SDK 10. But this is where I'm confused that PowerShell itself still requires .NET 9. I'm actually on LTS version, so I'm using .NET 8, and if this needs 10, like, I don't know which part will break. And right now for me, because the display bug is very annoying, for me the best experience is that I just deal with the select default, select the cell code type every time. Luckily, I don't create much new cells because I just copy files and we have a template and just update the template. And engineering, creating new cells is very little part of my work at the moment. But I'm really hoping for that updated extension and go to .NET SDK 10 with it. Yes.
Nice. Okay. Could we got to wrap up here shortly. Could we create a new one real quick? I just want to, let's not vibe code, but let's just have some fun and create a new one real quick with some common, over the years, some commands that I've seen that are pretty impactful to query some common things you might run into in non-Apple or XDR kind of security scenarios. And it's not going to be fully comprehensive because people are going to want to, you should know what you're looking for given a certain situation. So just codify that and put it into a notebook of your own. But we can get the gears turning a little bit. And some pretty simple ways, I guess, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like we could start with something like get process or get service. You could get some kind of information about that. What would be a good one on get process? I guess you could get the file hash of each one. I mean, that's going to be a hard one for me to have you write out.
I'm going to put that in. Oh, now it works.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So you said
get process.
I'm just going to the first 5.
Yeah. Where objects.
5 code.
Yeah, you just do whatever you do. Just vibe it.
Oh no, I mean I know that they have files already.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. That's it. Get file hash underscore dot path.
It's my copilot is having issues.
I think that looks good.
Well, the code does, but it's not actually PowerShell being. Okay.
Yeah, so you have to check if $ underscore path exists, but looks like there's some hashes. So for example, you're looking for something particular hash. You can report on that. One that I also really like is what was it? Get UDP, get net UDP. Yeah, get net UDP endpoint. That'll get your active UDP listening endpoints.
Say that again.
Get net UDP endpoint.
I need to. So I see PowerShell there, but that is still C#.
Yep, there it is, the top one. Okay.
I don't do local networking anymore.
Looks like this worked. Yeah.
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 Just I'm going to cut it back also to 5.
Yeah, that's probably smart. Let me look this one up. So auto run is another one. I think scheduled tasks, the ones, if you get the ones that are not disabled, or maybe it's enabled is the property on it. I'm not on a Windows machine at the moment. I think it's get scheduled task, something like that. That's another great one to do. And as time, even if this is just your own documentation, like let's take it a step back. Yeah, you can apply this to work stuff. And hopefully if you are, you have some docs that you could build this off of and you're not gonna have to do it from scratch. But let's put it in your own world. Like say we're learning. Say you are coming up with your own list of like cool PowerShell commands that you learn at PowerShell Wednesdays over time. And over time, you don't want to forget what they are. Well, you could do it in a kind of a security way as you explore security and poke at things in your lab and you find out commands that query the right event log that give you access to what is some insightful for you. You put that all into a notebook and over time you spend like 6 months to a year on it, just having fun here and there. You have a really helpful resource and you will be a lot farther along than if you had just done it one time and not documented. I mean, you'll be so much farther along if you do it that way because you'll have built a tool without having to have learned anything about PowerShell tool making and all this other stuff we talk about. You just needed to know Markdown and simple one-liners. It's kind of wild.
I just took one from the comments. I'm not going to run get computer info.
Yeah, smart.
I'm going to write on my other screen just to see what's in there. Yeah, that's too much now.
Yeah.
You don't need to see that.
Things like get ACL, though, you can get access control lists for certain things. File hashes, like we talked about, anything in the registry, you know, as time goes on, you understand your company, maybe you're troubleshooting things. Wouldn't you be like, just love to hand your help desk some PowerShell commands that they could run that you would run, and then they only reach out to you after they have maybe ran the commands? I mean, that would be sweet.
Yeah. I mean, it was years ago. I was trying to do remote commands from here. Of course, I am right now on a Entra ID joined machine, so it's not a normal on-prem ID, but you cannot do interactive remoting. But if you have an invoke command against a remote host and your credentials are okay, they will work, if that makes sense.
Okay, that does make sense. And you can get a credential if you need to as well.
Yes. And you can access all the certificates and all the other, yeah, really, almost all things works. The part which doesn't work, and let me pull this over here. I have a project, and I mentioned this. When you want to do terminal UI applications, let's say Spectra console, it will render parts of it, but it will look ugly.
Makes sense.
And this is right now querying Defender XDR, yes, in live. And you can see I just generated some security incidents in my lab environment because I made the user an admin. And the interactiveness, if you can see it on this part, I am able with my arrow select or go up and down and select options, and I can do stuff with the incidents I see. This interactiveness doesn't work in notebooks. And of course, I just had an error, but that doesn't take away the information that interactive stuff, like if I escape this and we have this get file, the control space to get this interactive selector. This also doesn't make sense in a notebook. So when you start typing stuff like I did here, it will be a bit. This is the IntelliSense, not the PowerShell doing it for you. But
Okay, so yeah, you lose some, I guess, PS readline stuff, maybe.
yes,
I
that's
do
the
have
word. Yes, read line.
something I
Yes.
want to share that's kind of exciting. We were talking about people need to use it more. Well, hey yo, Microsoft and the SQL Server team sends you notebooks for problem solving a case and checking how your environment is looking. Hey, shout out to the Microsoft SQL Server team. That's pretty cool. I mean, it makes sense.
Nice. Yeah. There is. So right now we are looking at interactively, right? But there is a module called PowerShell Notebooks. Or notebook. We will see. Yes, PowerShell Notebook. And I believe I have it installed. If I don't make a typo. Yes, I do. And of course, I could have run this in the notebook itself as well. But this allows us to invoke notebooks from the command line. And there is an input notebook parameter and an output output notebook parameter. So you can take a template file, in my case for incident investigation, and if I run this and tell it to save it or output the results into a different file, I basically have audit records of what I did. And I can, come on, just going to locate that demo file I have. I need a file type. If I do this, of course, the exception is presented. And I have the file, empty. Huh. Okay, your question about the
All right, I think I lost you audio wise. I think. Oh, it shows you're muted. Do you mind if I? Oh yeah, I can't. It says you're. Oh, say something. Oh no. Yeah, it said for a second your mic wasn't connected. I will allow you to take a gander at that. And we are coming up at the end of our PowerShell Wednesday here, so not the end of the world if it doesn't end up coming back. What did we talk about? Let's wrap it all up. Well, if you are really one of those people who are like, you're here every single PowerShell Wednesday, you're familiar with a lot of things we talk about, you're very comfortable, you're refined in what you can do with PowerShell, and you're looking to kind of expand it further and share it with other people, well, you should take the approach, or you should consider taking the approach that David has of getting things quite great UX for the rest of your team and very distributable, and kind of setting a standard on Jupyter Notebooks. And if you are a beginner, well, congrats. You have a new method or a new ADHD side project where you can now take note. Oh, I think I heard you. I think I heard something.
I changed.
Okay, yeah, that'll work. No worries. But yeah, so if you're more on the beginner side, well, you should be documenting things regardless. I really hope that you have some kind of documentation, some markdown file, some OneNote somewhere where you're keeping track of these one-liners and these things that you're learning here and there. But you could really benefit from using Jupyter Notebooks, and it gives you another excuse to learn VS Code, because if you're in that boat, you might be needing to kind of sharpen those skills as well. Kind of, you can do both things at once. So, all right, David, you can finish what you were saying. Sorry about that.
So what I wanted to say was that in interactive mode, the throw exception didn't stop anything, but in non-interactive mode, it seemingly did. So, of course, it makes no sense to have a throw in a file first line when you want to run it. That's why when I opened it, it was an empty file. And seemingly it is still an empty file. Yes.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to show? Any final messages before we wrap up here?
No.
Nope. Check them out. And hey, guess what we're about to do, David? We're about to do a podcast. Oh my gosh. And we can geek out a lot harder. We're going to talk security, PowerShell, maybe some cloudy stuff, and we'll see where else the conversation takes us. So check out that in the next couple weeks. It's been PowerShell Wednesday, 2026 edition. Woo! Let us know what you want to see in future episodes. Thanks for joining us live. Thanks for joining us after the fact. We'll see you next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And thanks, David.
Thank you for having me.
Let's give you a plug. Where can we find you? Let's get this guy some more followers. He's a new MVP. He's awesome. He's crushing it. Knows what he's doing. Kind, friendly.
davidsass.io. davidsass.io.
So I've been saying your last name wrong, so thank you for that. I will say it right on the podcast now that I've heard it. So awesome. Well, thank you, David, and thank you everybody out there for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.